Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. So, do you have any breaking news before we start?
There's a lot of breaking news. There was this famous sighting in Ohio. I'm going to play the music. So that was worth two because this is Ohio. I got so many emails about this UFO sighting. Many people were seeing it all over the place. Got dozens and dozens of emails. It's just hovering there. And man, I got some great pictures. And because of that, I was able to figure out what it was. It was a weather balloon, an actual goodness weather balloon. And
Like
sure, a real weather balloon of all the times that everybody got UFO footage. It was a weather balloon. I can safely debunk that one, gang. And sure enough, one of the National Weather Centers had lost control of their weather balloon and it traveled away from where they wanted it to.
Oh my goodness. I mean, like, what are the odds that it's ever actually a weather balloon?
I know, it's crazy. I was laughing so hard on that. Man, it looked great. I was like, oh my gosh, we finally got. And I was still thinking it was something for Wright Pat, a test flight or something for Wright Patterson, but no, it was a weather balloon. I couldn't believe it. It was so great.
Fully appreciate that completely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know we've had a lot of stuff. Things are moving and shaking. We're wrapping up the book. But somehow, even though I've been reading tons of Civil War history from you, you managed to come up with more.
Well, so there's this thing called July 4th, 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of our country that you and I were born in. So yes. I thought for this month, we would do just 4 weeks of American weirdness, hauntings, ghosts, legends, cryptids. I mean, we do the bulk in America, but we do some all around the world. But I thought these would be important American ones to focus on for the next few weeks. I thought that would be good for us. So
I kind of love that. Yeah.
One of my earliest memories is going on the Freedom Train in 1976 when it was the 200th.
What is the Freedom Train?
It was this thing. They went all around the country in 1976 in an old train that had all sorts of museum stuff from American history. And it was pretty cool. It was a neat thing to do. And like I said, I was 5 or 6. I was 5 when that happened. So I don't remember it well, but I remember the train was all American colors and it was pretty cool. And I think Evel Knievel did some stunts while we were there.
I will appreciate all of this happening. I like it.
I don't see a Freedom Train this year. But anyway, let's get to it because we got a lot to get through today. So, and I'm going to start with this acorn. Okay. This is at the Museum of the Confederacy in Richmond, Virginia. And at one point, this was there, and it was this small brass acorn about 1 inch long. Now, according to legend, a Confederate courier used to hide messages in this, and then he would carry it to the front lines. Now, how did he hide the messages even more? Well, this was inserted into a very private place.
How private?
Down below.
Was it in the? Did they go through the front door or the back door?
The back door. This was known as.
Oh my goodness!
This is known as the rectal acorn. So
no, that's not something you want to be known as.
Yep, it was meant to be carried internally and then retrieved and wiped clean for the next dispatch. So
I don't love any of that.
A modern collector offered to buy it, and the owner refused to part with it, mostly because we don't really know if it really was this or not. That's just the legend. That's the story behind it. But yeah, it's attached to a name that will come up later. But I had to start with this just to show you how weird the Civil War was. I mean, it is stranger than fiction, and we're gonna go all over.
Okay, well, this just got really awkward. but I appreciate it. So let's do it.
Okay, so that's the bar is set, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so there's this quiet farm in North Carolina. Hey, we live there. And there were two men who lived as one. They were
Okay.
Chang and Eng, the Bunker brothers. They were the original Siamese twins. They were joined by some weird band of flesh, and they shared a couple organs. And they had settled there long before the Civil War. And they married two sisters.
Okay.
And they fathered 21 children between the two of them. And
oh my gosh,
yeah, and they were prosperous slaveholding farmers.
I don't know that last part.
I know, but it was the time. So the main problem is they are inseparable, right? Physically inseparable. And one got conscripted to join the army for the Civil War, not the other one. How do you do it? Yeah, so they had no protocol for this. The army did not. So the draft notice was dropped, but three of their sons did have to go to war and fight for the gray. Several others wound up going to war, and later on, so 7 of the boys wound up fighting in the Civil War. And that's just, how is that?
A third of their kids ended up doing it?
Yes, a third of their kids wound up fighting in the Civil War. And these two men stayed home. So, because how are you going to do it? Plus, I think it would have been tough to find a uniform for them.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. Okay.
Okay, so that's to start. Now, we're going to get a little weird here because these aren't weird enough. All right, so Battle of Shiloh in 1862. Yeah. There was mud. It was rainy. It was terrible. And a lot of men were getting sick, and dying from infection after the battles and during all that. And what happened was the men all reported seeing this blue-green glowing glow coming out of their own injuries. And
wait, whoa.
Yeah.
You just said green glowing coming out of their injuries?
Yes. This strange luminescence was coming out of their injuries. And
I don't like any of that. No.
This is widely reported. And those who, quote, shone, was what they call it, like I assume like The Shining. They seemed to heal faster. And they survived much longer than any ones that didn't shine. We have no idea. Yeah, they called it the Angel of Shiloh. It was called the Miracle of Shiloh. For 140 years, this was dismissed as myth. And now I call it preternatural, right? Because it's just something we didn't understand. 2001, 2 Maryland teenagers, a guy named Bill Martin and John Curtis, they were interested in this. And they started a research thing on it. And they discovered that a bioluminescent bacterium, and I will try to pronounce it, Photohabus luminescens. My Latin kind of kicked in there. It lives in the guts and lives in nematodes. And so when a soldier is laying cold and hypothermic, and they're in the West Tennessee soil, these bacteria could multiply in a wound and would give off a faint, eerie light, a light green glow. And that bacteria, some of them release antibiotics, and they would have killed off most of the dangerous pathogens. So the men who glowed weren't, cured by angels. Well, kind of, they were cured by a miracle because they were being naturally medicated. And it's one of those fascinating to me, right? That is
That's
preternatural.
That is so bizarre. So there's a real thing that happened, but because we didn't have the medical science at the time to be able to identify it, it was like, but now it is identified, so it's not preternatural.
We're not 100% certain, but that is, so it was folklore and now it's science. So
Yeah.
these guys won an award for it. They have not, it has not been conclusive because nobody was there. We don't know 100%. And it's not like we can, the bones of those guys would give us much DNA of these pathogens or anything, because they would have been long gone too. So,
Yeah.
but it is a fascinating, just a fascinating thing. So, just shows, medical in the period was a lot of craziness. This was, we were getting first battlefield amputations, and other stuff like that. This is also when we first started really using prosthetics. I mean, they'd had wooden legs and peg legs and stuff like that before. And a few guys, medieval generals had metal hands and stuff. But this was first time we started trying to make it fancy. So, all right, here we go. Let's move on to the next one. All right, 1863. A Confederate soldier was in a field hospital with a fractured skull. A piece of bone, a piece of bone had splintered, but it remained attached. And the surgeons, they'd already been overworked by battlefield stuff constantly. So they were like, we're afraid to touch it. Even a wrong move will kill him. So they left the wound covered with a poultice and were trying to help other people. And they just let him there for like the night. And that night, a rat crept in. And it was attracted by the smell of all the bodies and everything. And it went up to that poultice and it gnawed at the soldier's head. And by morning, the loose bone fragment had disappeared. It had been chewed cleanly away by the rat. So he lived. He lived. He was fine. And the newspaper report of it, quote, a skillful operation. It's just, I mean, it's unsanitary and completely, and I love the grotesque humor of the newspaper there. That was just wonderful. But the guy lived another 20 years. He was fine. So I shades of Ratatouille, I guess. Yeah.
That's super gross. But at the same time, I don't think a lot of people realize how frequently back then maggots were used and can still be used today if to eat an infected area. Like, I don't think people realize certain leeches were used. So good and bad. But I mean, they had the kind of right idea that the blood needed to be clean.
What's weird is they're bringing leeches back in a couple places. So
I don't think that's weird necessarily, because there's a function some of these animals have that, is part of, I hate to say it, but kind of the evolutionary system here. And
nature finds a way. Nature finds a way.
Yeah.
Miracles in nature. So
you could
we'll have to do a
have
special on that at some point. Miracles in nature.
Yeah.
So all right. Anyway, so all right. Battle of Nashville, 1864. Okay. Captain Roland E. Hackett took a bullet to the mouth. It smashed out 3 of his teeth. And then it took the long way out, came through his digestive tract, and emerged 3 days later, naturally. And he lived on to tell the tale. Now, similarly, Private James T. Dowdy in Gettysburg, a mini ball hit his abdomen. And then, according to the doctors, after a week of discomfort, he passed it in the usual manner. So both these men became super celebrities, and their stories were circulated in newspapers as miraculous. And it just shows, hey, the body's weird, right? We do some weird things. So
the body can be amazing, like I think that it can be, and especially when somebody's survival, their drive to survive is so intense. I think absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because, you get a bullet, you're you're in search of the bullet, right?
Yeah. All right. So now I got to get into a couple odd folks
Okay.
of the war. General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, military genius on the gray side. But he was also, what many people don't know, he was a hypochondriac of the highest order. He believed that his body was perpetually, quote, out of balance. And so to restore equilibrium, he rode into battle with one arm raised in the air, like always. And
like
yeah,
hand up.
Hello. Yeah, like waving hello. He refused to eat pepper because he thought it weakened his left leg. Okay.
Just his left leg?
Just his left leg. Just his left leg. And he would dunk his entire head in cold water every morning, convinced that it would help fix his eyesight. So we think he might have been nearsighted, but he never wore glasses. So
that is something.
I mean, some people say taking a cold shower helps, in the morning. So,
I guess so, right?
I gotta have a steaming hot bath. I gotta look like a lobster when I come out. I gotta remove 3 layers of skin when I come out. That's the only way I feel clean.
Well, there's a lot of people, those are weird. Yeah. Those are super weird. But there are a lot of people that have certain things that they do like that are habits. Like, I want to know where he thought raising
I'm sure somebody told him this at some point, and he just kept it. I'm sure he had to stretch for something, and then he just kept that the rest. I mean, it sounds like he was on the spectrum a little bit. I mean, he was a tactical genius. And he could see things that others couldn't and all that. He did sit like ramrod straight at all times. He was worried that slouching would rearrange his internal organs. So, yeah.
Okay.
He was deeply and wonderfully strange.
He
was also relentless. Yes. He was relentless in battle. Okay. So another on the south side, General Longstreet. At Antietam, the single bloodiest day in American history. We'll get back to that. That's actually on the skirts of our new book. Available in fine bookstores soon. But Confederate. All right, so Confederate General James Longstreet, he fought in the Battle of Antietam in carpet slippers. Earlier that day, he'd injured his foot, and his dress boots were just too painful. So he's directing thousands of men under a hail of fire, and he's wearing soft, comfortable house shoes. So like slippers, carpet slippers.
Wow. So, okay.
Just a little detail. I love reading about things like that. So now we'll go over to the Union side for the blue. Sherman, Union General William Tecumseh Sherman. There was one day, details are a little fuzzy, but he was on a ferry heading across the water to recon a position, and the ferry hit some bad weather or something in the river. No one really knows. And he got thrown off the ferry, and the ferry sank. Now, the rescue boat comes out and picks him up. And then as it picks him up, he gets on it. They start going back. Whatever knocked him over knocks him over again, and that boat sinks. So he finally gets rescued out of very icy water, and he's fine. But so talk about a man followed by chaos. That should tell you something. When you have 2 shipwrecks in one day, so something's out to get you.
Understatement.
That was long before March to the Sea, but man, I think he had somebody on his side there. All right, so
yes,
somebody was fighting against him, somebody was fighting for him. That's very Ulysses there.
Very true.
Very true. All right, so all right, now we've got that. Now General Grant, this is just a goofy thing. I can't find much on it.
Wait, I need to hold on. It just all sank in. So this guy's on boats, and some unseen force launches him to safety, not once, but twice. Like, hey, really, you shouldn't be on this river.
Yeah. Well,
Or
he gets
one could
knocked
flip
into
the
the water
tides
twice.
and
Yeah.
say that he brought upon this watery demise by some, I don't know, unseen force.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
so
It's
bizarre
like,
to me.
I think Poseidon wanted him drowned, and then Zeus wanted him back on the land, or something like that. That's exactly my thoughts. So,
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well,
all right.
Well done. Well
All right.
done.
So now during the Battle of Vicksburg, which was the whole campaign of Vicksburg, Ulysses S. Grant, he rode a horse named Kangaroo. Now, no one knows why the animal got that name. No one really knows anything about it, but it is funny because it's in every dispatch about the campaign is code word kangaroo. And it's funny because you're reading these terrible battlefield statistics and who was fighting who and all that, and then kangaroo was there.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, that's a dumb one. I just had to put it in there. Okay, so
I appreciate it.
All right, Mary Todd Lincoln in the White House.
Okay.
Her son Willie had died, and so she was grieving, and she became a devoted spiritualist. And so she started holding seances in the White House. This is a well-known thing. And she was believing that the ghost whispered military secrets to her. And then she would pass those secrets on to her husband, Abraham. And now, Abraham Lincoln was very patient with her for a lot of reasons. And so he attended at least a few of these sessions. And we don't know what happened in those sessions. They're not documented. We just know he was there. And so it wouldn't be till Nancy Reagan later, I think, that we didn't start doing that again. So, all right. So now I'm going to get into these guys a little bit later, but there was the North was not completely unified. Okay. There were anti-war Democrats, and they were called the Copperheads by their enemies, and they openly resisted the draft. And in Ohio, a mob of conscripted men beat a Union agent bloody when they tried to sign him up. In Indiana, there was a secret society called the Sons of Liberty that were plotting to overthrow the U.S. government. So there was a civil war in the North, while it was still a civil war between the North and South. And the South had its own issues with that too. But we'll get back to Copperhead conspiracy stuff because there's a little bit more in that in a bit. Now, when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, they found a $5 Confederate bill in his wallet. And he had been in Richmond just a few days before, so we figure he picked it up there. But the Confederate capital was still, smoldering at that point. But it's just kind of a weird thing. Why no one knows if he was carrying it as a good luck charm or something. Or it may have been a bad luck charm. But why would Lincoln carry a $5 Confederate bill is just one of those mysteries of the Civil War we do not know, or post-Civil War. So
maybe it was to remember. I mean, he, one of the things that I think some people don't know about Abraham Lincoln, and there's a great book about it. We'll link it in the show notes. It's about the Lincoln letters.
Yeah.
And one of the things he did, and I've talked to people about this because it's something you can do along our whole band of intention type stuff, right? Is he would write letters to people of the things he wanted to communicate to them, but he was never intending to give those letters to those people. It was more like just to get out the communication. And I sometimes tell people this is a good thing to do. And especially if they're upset about a situation, because sometimes talking to people is not actually going to resolve it. Like they don't want to fix it, or they, you know what I mean? It's some form of abusive type relationship where maybe it's even mental abuse or whatever, but you write these letters. So I'm wondering if maybe he took that $5 bill with the intention of writing a letter.
Yeah, it's quite possible. We don't know. It's an unusual unusual thing. So, all right. So one more before we take the break, and that is there were more medals of honor awarded during the Civil War than in World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined. The standards were a little different, I guess, because it was a much lower bar back then. One soldier officially received the Medal of Honor for re-enlisting.
You know what? It sounds like they were way more generous. That's what I'm going to say. A
little more.
It sounds like.
Yeah, there's an entire regiment, the 27th Maine. They had all received the Medal of Honor as a regiment. And then it was revoked after investigators realized they hadn't actually been where they were given their Medal of Honor, and they hadn't ever actually done anything super heroic or heroic at all. So it was completely revoked.
How does it feel when somebody revokes your Medal of Honor?
I mean, that's pretty terrible, but I can imagine that those guys were like, woo, we got Medal of Honors. And then years later, they were like, oh, it's going away. Well, we had it for a little bit. And we hadn't really done much. So, all right. Well, we got a couple minutes, so we'll go a couple little things before we go to the break. We're going to talk some high-tech warfare. So the Union was the first major, it was the first major war after the Industrial Revolution, Civil War. So in spring of 1861, this eccentric guy came out named Thaddeus Lowe, and he launched a balloon called the Enterprise from a vacant lot in Cincinnati, and he began the first military air reconnaissance corps in American history. And so he had this gift for showmanship. So he had, the ships were called the Constitution, the Intrepid, which is named after famous boats and all this. And each balloon was like this marvel of craftsmanship. They were made of thousands of square feet of double layered silk, multiple coats of varnish, and that made it airtight. And from 1861 to 1863, he had 7 balloons. He hired a team of aeronauts and conducted thousands of flights. And President Lincoln took a keen interest, and so he would have Lowe telegraph enemy positions from above. They ran telegraph lines up to the balloon so it could telegraph down to the guys. So, and again, the balloons became targets. But after a while, when they realized what they were, for 2 years, they were in service, and pretty cool. So, and I love it was from Cincinnati, not far from Wright Field.
Oh, wow.
Early aeronauts in that place. So, and I'm sure they were reported as UFOs as well, but they weren't weather balloons.
Yeah. Well, they were unidentified at the time.
I'm sure nobody had seen those much. So, all right. Well, we'll talk more strange Civil War, and don't worry, we're getting to the ghosts after the break. Hope you're enjoying the video, gang.
Yep.
All right. Yep. We had to break for the audio version, but now we're coming back. Woohoo! More Civil War. Am I boring you yet, Erika, or are you finding this interesting?
No, I think it's interesting to become educated as parts of our history, because it's where some of our folklore, our tales are from. So I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, don't worry. I've got plenty more, gang. So here we go.
Oh, plenty more.
Plenty more. So, all right. So now the Union owned the skies, and the Union owned the waters pretty much, except they didn't own underneath the waters. And that's because we had the H.L. Hundley. This was a tiny hand-cranked submarine that was just about 34 feet long, and it was built from an old boiler and had 8 men turning a propeller by hand. You look at it, it's a death trap. I would not want to be.
I have no doubt I would not want to have been in it.
Okay. The submarine sank not once, but twice ever before seeing combat. So.
And yeah. It's kind of like the second time I get it the first time they go, oh, okay, we didn't account for A, B, or C.
Yep.
But the second time you would think they go, you know what? Maybe this is not a good idea.
Yeah, so August 29th, 1863, during a test run, 5 crew members died when she went down. Then October 15th, later that same year, she sank again, this time killing all 8 of her second crew, including Horace Hunley, the man who invented it himself, the civilian inventor who had constructed it. He wasn't even in the Confederate military, but they raised it again, and then this time she made it to battle. On the night of February 17th, 1864, the little submarine slipped through the darkness off Charleston Harbor, and it had a spar torpedo. It was basically a bomb on the end of a long pole. And she approached USS Housatonic. This was a 1,240-ton sloop of war, massive. And it rammed the torpedo into the Union ship's hull. The Housatonic sank in minutes, and it became the first warship ever destroyed by a submarine. So, but the Hunley never came back.
Yeah, I'll give them credit for that. Yeah. Go team.
Yeah. So the Hunley never returned, lost at sea. And for 136 years, we didn't know what happened to her. And there were tons of theories that the torpedo's explosion breached her hull, a lucky shot from the Housatonic may have hit it, or that she collided with something in the dark because they didn't really have sonar or anything to see. Mm-hmm. When they finally found her they finally were able to raise her in the year 2000. They had found her before that. The crew were still there at their posts. Their bones were just scattered across the interior. We still aren't 100% sure what killed it, but we're pretty sure it was just the explosion knocked her straight to the ground. Wow. So the Hunley claimed full 3 crews, and she is still available to visit. So we'll talk about that in our travels at the end. So,
oh my goodness! Wow.
All right. Okay. Now I think the best invention of the war, the most unexpected invention, is something we still use every day. Okay, so before the Civil War, soldiers had nowhere convenient to keep small items. They carried everything in these knapsacks, and they just had like crazy pockets sewn in everywhere, and it was uncomfortable, inefficient, and it would lose supplies in the battle. So a man named Henry C. Merriam, now he was in the U.S. Army. He saw this problem and he patented a solution. His design for an improved knapsack included a critical feature, a hip strap, and a dedicated pocketed position at the waist, allowing soldiers to carry essential gear without straining their backs or shoulders. So look at these, they just had the weird pockets all over and everything. We kind of had the front pockets and all that. So he invented the hip pocket. So that would go in the back. So now Joseph Short received a patent for his own knapsack design, and his was focused on protecting soldiers' back from the crushing weight of the gear. And that was his version of the hip pocket. It almost is kind of like the what we call them, the man purses that slide around everybody's waist with the little Velcro backs.
Excuse me, those are called merces, but you're also, I think, talking about a fanny pack.
A fanny pack, yes, a fanny pack. This guy was the predecessor of that. So now, mundane but revolutionary, right? The hip pocket was adopted Army-wide, and its basic design is here today. So every time you slip a phone into your back pocket, you need to thank a Civil War quartermaster named Henry C. Merriam.
Well, thank you very much. And I liked it when they decided that women were not using their pockets to carry spell components and actually need them.
But here we are. So, I know a few friends
Well,
who do
I
use
mean,
them
the
to carry their
truth
spell
is,
components.
I do carry spell components.
Yeah,
in mine,
let's say, wait
but
a
that's
minute.
not for everybody to know.
And it's not just women. I do it too. All right. So,
Yeah.
okay, one of my favorite things to come out of the Civil War, just because it was so weird. It didn't get much use, but it was the start of machine guns. So it started a bad trend in some ways, but this was a crazy thing. So it was before the Gatling gun, and this was
Okay.
called the Ager. And it was and this guy who made weird things. Again, we love these inventors.
Mhm.
It looks like a piece of kitchen equipment at the top, right? And so it
Oh,
became known
wow.
as the coffee mill gun, the Ager gun. And it was this hopper on top. Instead of like belt fed ammunition and stuff, you filled the top with bullets and it just cranked it and the bullets fell down and shot. Now it was much faster than most rifles at the time. And one witness, reporter who watched it go to battle, said, now all things ready, the diabolical grist of bullets in the hopper, the gunner turns the crank with his right hand, and then the grisly play begins.
Wow.
So yeah. So it first saw combat at Lee's Mill during the siege of Yorktown, and General John Geary's regiment deployed 10 of them at once. Now it would be superseded by the Gatling gun very quickly, but single shot muskets were going away, and this is the proof right there. So
Wow.
all right. So now we did invent landmines in this war because the Confederacy was outnumbered, outgunned. So they started doing a lot of unconditional warfare, and they called a land torpedo. So we would now call it a landmine.
Yeah.
They basically were just explosive devices. Two Confederate Navy Commander Matthew Fontaine Maury, he developed electronically triggered naval mines. And General Gabriel Rains invented the Subterra shell, basically the first modern landmine. And they ran a torpedo bureau, and they would keep coming up with these. They came up with the keg torpedo, a submarine mortar battery for naval use. Yeah, they admitted that this was not gentlemanly warfare, but they
Yeah.
did. Their quote was, "It is admissible to plant shells in a parapet to repel assault, or in a road to stop pursuit." So
Oh.
now the Union condemned them as infernal devices, and they used a ton though during the battle. So
Infernal devices, huh?
infernal devices. So
I like that.
now one more odd thing. We're going to go back to Lincoln here. He
Okay.
had, he was under the crushing weight of command during the Civil War, right? That's just got to be the worst thing to be through. Political backbiting, all that.
Yeah.
And he had a little document. You talk about the Lincoln letters. He had, I don't know if you knew, but he was very good with play with words. He was very folksy. He loved wordplay. And
Yeah.
he would, these generals had these grandiose names and stuff like that. And he's like, no. So the commander of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, General Robert E. Lee, no, he was Bobby Lee in Lincoln's documents. And
Bobby Lee.
Bobby
Okay.
Lee. Jefferson Davis was Jeffy D. So he did that with a lot of his documents, and that sounds a lot like somebody else we know in politics today who makes goofy names for his enemies and his friends. So just one of those fun facts that popped out. Now, Confederacy, they collapsed in April 1865, but not all Southerners accepted defeat, right? Thousands refused to live under Northern rule, and because they were facing prosecution for treason, they fled. A big group didn't go out west. They went to Mexico. And at the same time, Mexico was undergoing its own dramatic upheaval. The French had invaded, and they had installed Emperor Maximilian von Habsburg. And sorry, my history failed me there. But he was basically a European puppet. And he was eager to attract settlers because he thought it would help stabilize his regime. So he said, hey, come on down, Confederates, help me colonize this place. So there's this bizarre alliance of basically a handful of Confederate leaders, and they joined forces with this French emperor, and they were planned to call it the New Virginia Colony. And a lot of Confederate refugees, a lot of slaveholders seeking to preserve their way of life went down there, and they poured into central Mexico. They had names like Carlotta. There was even a discussion of a Confederate States of Mexico at one point. But Maximilian's empire collapsed in 1867. He was executed by Mexican Republicans. And without French protection, the Confederate exiles had to flee again. Some returned to the U.S. and said, all right, we screwed up. But some pressed further south. So Brazil, at that time, slavery was still legit there and still legal. And Emperor Don Pedro III welcomed the Confederate immigrants again. So between 1865 and 1885, 10,000 to 20,000 Confederates made the voyage down to Brazil, and they called themselves Confederados, and they established entire towns. So there's still some of them there, names like New Texas, Americana, New Virginia. And it was just little pockets of the South down there in the tropics. And they brought some of their architecture, their farming techniques. They did bring Baptist and Methodist churches and a lot of their recipes. So that's why sometimes in Brazil, you'll find some old Southern cooking and you're like, what? So now the descendants of the Confederados still gather every year in the cemetery of Santa Barbara de Oeste, where they hold a festival in honor of their ancestors. They wave a Confederate flag, they play banjo music, and eat fried chicken. So just a goofy remnant that's still there. So
wow.
Okay. Now, the North side had some other issues too. The Canadian conspiracy here. So Canada was not neutral. Throughout the war, Montreal served as the Confederacy's largest foreign secret service. There was a sprawling network of spies, smugglers, and saboteurs, and they were just running with impunity all along the northern border. And they had $1 million of hard currency gold to fund their operations and their clandestine activities. So the city's hotels were like filled with Confederate agents. And so autumn 1864, the Confederate Congress passed the Secret Service Act, and that added another $1 million to the fund. Imagine that. That's Civil War time. So it culminated in the raid on St. Albans, October 15th, 1864. These guys all come in, check into the American House Hotel. Just weird that a lot of travelers are coming in, and over the 6 days, 20 of them come in. And then they start taking positions around town. And at 3 p.m. on October 19th, they attack. They herded terrified civilians into the town square. They announced this city is now in possession of the Confederate States of America. They robbed 3 banks. They netted about 200,000. It's not the million, but that would be about 3 million in today's currency, but not the million that they'd spent. And one citizen, Linus J. Morrison, he was shot and killed because he refused to obey. They attempted to set the town on fire, but their incendiary devices failed. So a couple buildings were damaged, but wasn't too bad. And those in St. Albans, Vermont, they tried to chase him, but they had fresh horses and a head start. They got away, got over the Canadian border. The two armed posses couldn't catch him in time. So,
Okay.
Now, U.S. government is pissed. So this was an act of war from a neutral territory. Canadian authorities, under pressure from Abraham Lincoln and Washington, they arrested about half the raiders. But they ruled that they were legitimate belligerents acting under orders from a Confederate government and therefore could not be extradited to the United States. So they were released on December 13th, 1864 and allowed passage back to the Confederate States. But the stolen 200,000 was returned to the U.S. So,
wow. So they just let them go.
Yep. Just let them go. So.
Okay.
All right. So that's the weird stuff. Let's get to some ghosts real quick. I think that you guys so
that's all I can say is, like, seriously, that's the weird stuff.
Yeah. So we talked about Antietam, bloodiest day, the bloodiest. So September 17th, 1862, 23,000 men killed, wounded, or missing. That's intense,
crazy.
The creek ran red for days. And there's one area, there's a few areas. The Bloody Lane, which was a sunken farm road, it became a slaughterhouse. Union troops poured fire into a Confederate column that was stuck in there, and the bodies stacked 3 or 4 deep. And yeah, there are numerous times people walk by that, and of course they hear gunfire, distant screams. That's just a common thing we hear on a lot of battlefields. It's just the sound of gunfire and marching boots. It could be reenactors, but if it's late at night, you're finding something else. But the thing there is, got a few people have reported it, and we even have a recording of it. Was this kind of chant that just says, "Give us water, give us water." Yeah, they're dying of thirst, and yeah, it's just a chilling little thing there. Now, Burnside Bridge is this small stone bridge over Antietam Creek. And for hours, there was basically a handful of Georgia sharpshooters holding off the entire 9th Army of the Union. And they just were on the bridge. They had good position. And they were able to slow everything down. Now, what people see there is they have that smell of gunpowder out of nowhere. And then they'll see shadows on the bridge looking out like sharpshooters. So it's that smell that gets me on that one, because I was there and I smelt it when I went on that bridge. So it could just it could be remnants of reenactors, but the fact that it's been reported for a long time, it's pretty great, over a century. Yeah. So now there is Stones River. This is an important one. Battle of Stones River. Now, this is near Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Now, it had a higher percentage of casualties than Shiloh or Bull Run, but it was this one wooded area called the Slaughter Pen that was, we name these things after how bad the battle was. So there is this strange blue mist, like a fog that kind of moves against the wind, and it has been seen there a ton. And people see shadowy figures coming out of the mist. This supposedly is one of the inspirations for John Carpenter for The Fog.
The Fog.
Yeah, but there's a Union colonel named Julius Peter Garouche, and he was riding next to General William Rosecrans, and a cannonball took his head off. So,
like
clean off, and his body stayed in the saddle for like a minute and a half before it fell over.
Ooh, okay.
So guess what ghost they see there?
This be a headless horseman ghost?
A headless horseman, you called it. So Visitors and park rangers to this day have seen the ghost of a Union colonel, headless, in a blue uniform, riding silently and often accompanied by that strange blue mist.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a big deal. Like if your head gets blown off, no offense, but
yeah, you're not going to realize you're dead for a few minutes. So, well, your head's going to notice in a second, but the rest of your body takes a minute to catch up. So, yeah. And if you're going to have a leftover spirit, now I don't know why the horse is still there, but it is a thing. So that never, I always worried about that with the headless horseman. Why is the horse a ghost? So,
you need props.
That's true. And tension.
I'm just going to throw that out there. You do need props.
Okay. Now, Shiloh, we talked a little bit about that, it has a national cemetery there, and it holds a statue called the Weeping Angel. Hey, we know that from Doctor Who. And supposedly her expression changes. So by day, she looks kind of sad, but by moonlight, she's smiling. It's just a weird thing. People say it's, she moves just like a fraction. Now, the big thing in there is the Tennessee River. The ghost there that most people claim it's not, soldiers or anything like that. We had the glowing wounds, but they often see a drummer boy, like a young boy, tapping on a drum. You can hear it. And then you follow it and you'll see this kid before he vanishes. Okay. So they don't know which side because he's, a drummer boy. They didn't really wear uniforms much. But this one also was just kind of luminescent. Again, don't really know. Harper's Ferry, John Brown's raid in 1859. We wrote about that in the new book. Harper's Ferry changed hands 8 times during the Civil War because it was so important for crossroads. And so that place is filled with ghosts of both sides marching constantly. Now, the small firehouse where Brown was captured has a ghost with that some say is John Brown, but it's that's all cosplay ghosts, right? It's always the most famous guy there. That ghost is seen to be holding the door closed, and you can't open the door when he's there. So they'll see him on one side, they'll try to pull on it from the other, and it won't open.
Well, that makes sense. He's probably in the middle of a very important meeting, and you're trying to, intrude.
Okay, some quick ones. Of course, Andersonville, the infamous Confederate prison. 13,000 Union soldiers died. Of course, they say the land is cursed, and you can hear voices calling out in the night and shadows moving along the stockade. It's considered one of the most haunted locations in the United States. To be fair, when I went there, it felt calm and peaceful. Especially there was this miracle fountain where water came out when they had no clean water, and this lightning struck, and suddenly a spring started flowing. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's talk about divine intervention again. Now I don't know. There was Fort Zachary Taylor down in Key West we went to. The fort never saw battle, but thousands in it died of yellow fever and tuberculosis. And you hear phantom coughing in there all the time. So
I don't love that either. No.
All right. So we'll go into other battles like Manassas, Chancellorsville, Appomattox at another time, just because those need full deep dives. Some of these do too. But anyway, so it's the year of the horse. Remember, Erika, as well as
year of the horse.
So I've got another horse story for you.
Okay. Are we taking this out with a horse story?
We're taking it out with a horse story for end of the year. So I'm just going to tell you, there was this horse's original owners was a Confederate family named Gullet. Okay. And this horse has some sort of, you tell me, all right? You tell me. Okay, 3 brothers from the Gullet family. Okay, they are all riding this horse at different times. So the first is young Confederate Captain S. Isidore Gullett. He got shot in the saddle.
Okay.
Two of his other brothers were killed on the horse, riding it at different times in strange accidents. So the family willed the horse to a nephew, said, get rid of this. You do what you want to with it. So he passed the curse on, basically. So the horse was then given to this other troop, and they used it for 3 days. We don't know what happened after those 3 days, but they got rid of it. They didn't like that horse. So it was given or sold to the Union Ohio's 98th Regiment somehow. And this, again, 3 lives of 3 officers rode it into battle, 3 lives gone. So
I don't like these statistics at all.
Yeah. So after the 3rd officer was killed, the chain of command fell to a man known only as Lieutenant Milliner. That may be this is the muddy waters of researching this. So he was now the senior officer left in the field, and with no other mount apparently available because the battle had been going to bed, he climbed onto that jinxed horse. Now this one, it didn't kill him, but he didn't get away unscathed. While in the saddle, he was struck by a mini ball that shattered his arm. And so and that permanent injury, rest of his life. So the story kind of ends there. There is no record of what happened to the animal. Did it survive the war? We don't know. Did it finally meet its end? We don't know. The history is silent. And then the scary thing is we don't know its name. We don't know the horse's name. So
Really?
It was documented that it was the Gullett family horse. So
that's bizarre, to say the least.
So here we go. The final twist of fate.
Okay.
A Confederate soldier with the last name Gullett, no first name given, but probably from the same family line because he's from the same area, everything. He is cited as the owner of the contents of the rectal acorn. So
wow.
If it's the same family, oh my gosh, that's
a lot of spiritual energy around that family that has a butt plug. Mark, I don't think this can go anywhere else.
But for your travel today, you can visit the H.L. Hunley. It is on public display in the Warren Lash Conservation Center in North Charleston, South Carolina. And it's pretty crazy. Something to see and realize how many men died in it as an experimental craft. And it is in its tank because that's the only way they can keep it to prevent corrosion on its iron hull. And you'll go there, they'll still be working on preserving it. So pretty crazy. So
very crazy.
All right. Are there ghosts there? I'm sure there are. But
yes, I can confirm. Yes.
All right. So thank you, travelers, for riding with us in the Civil War on our jinxed horse. And please, seek out our Patreon if you can. Throw us $1. You get on our amazing Discord, and you also get fun stuff that we do on there. And we are pretty open to chat on that. And then otherwise, we'll be doing these on YouTube as much as we can. And the episodes air on podcasts on Friday. Tune in on your favorite podcasting platform. With all that, Erika, anything last words on the Civil War?
No, but I feel like I've learned a lot, and I hope our travelers feel the same way. I'm so weird, but I'm very excited that pockets were invented. Let's continue.
Yes, and I am no Ken Burns, gang, but I'm doing my best. So when you're out there visiting your Civil War memorials or your Civil War battlefields, remember it was the darkest time in our nation's history. It is a terrible time, but a lot of good came from it overall. We advanced. We've become much better people overall. And I don't think you need to swallow an acorn or put it up your butt if you really need to send a message. Just a text. It's fine. And we'll see you on the other side.